You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a previously aired live video webcast.
Hi, I'm Tara Lynn of Geek Saga Entertainment, and welcome to Endings and Beginnings, the third and final episode of my 2002 Walt Disney World College Program 20-year reunion series. In this episode, I will be talking about the end of my summer program and chatting with my guests about how their fall 2002 experiences might have differed from mine in the fall of 2001. So, real quick, why don't we go around the room here? You guys can reintroduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I did the Fall Advantage program in 2002. I have Instagram. It's KellyAnn8783. Haven't posted on there in a while, but I am on there all the time watching people's stories. So that's me.
All right, Jonathan. Back for the first time since May.
Back for blood. Or not. But got a lesser train of thought. Hey, Jonathan, Fall Advantage 2002, worked at Epcot at Innovations from Rochester, New York.
And I am Maria, and I did the Fall 2002 program. I was a custodial hostess at Epcot in Future World West. So right next door to Jonathan in lots of different ways. Both lived in Vista Way.
Yep. And we're right next to each other on this too.
All right. And as I already mentioned, I'm Tara. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at A Geek Saga and on the web at geeksaga.com. Also, don't forget that I now have a Patreon with 10 tiers ranging from $1 a month to $40 a month. It offers tons of ways to support us and receive some great perks in return. I also just recently upgraded/updated some of the tiers, added a couple different perks for the $3 and up and I believe $10 and up tiers, and those include special access to early podcast episodes of my upcoming House of the Dragon series, which will be an episode by episode podcast series called Hot D Takes. And you can check that out at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment. Okay, get into some college program chat now, outside of my normal geeky stuff. If you missed episodes 1 and 2 of this series, definitely check those out to hear all about how Jonathan and Kelly ended up on the college program. I'm sure some of that will come up in this episode, but right now it's Rhea time. As a first-time guest, can you give us some background on how you decided to do the Walt Disney World College program? And also, we can just lump this all together, like how you decided to do it, and also what you remember about your check-in experience, job assignment, training, all that good, the real beginnings stuff.
All right, fantastic. So I was a freshman at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio, and I was aggressively lonely as a college freshman. The transition from high school to college for me was pretty rough, and it was the spring of my freshman year, and I remember trudging across campus and I saw somebody drew some Mickey ears in chalk on the sidewalk. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then a few steps past that, you see, Student Union, March 3rd, 8 p.m., some presentation. And then I caught sight of some flyers, which I may still have because I am a millennial woman. I scrapbooked and I saw this flyer telling me all the details. And I thought, okay, this really sounds cool because I've been a Disney fan since I was a little girl. I had been to Disney World a handful of times, the most recent time of which would have been only about 2 years prior. And I wanted to hear what it was all about. So I went to the presentation, and it was probably a good 50 students in there at least, because Kent State was a pretty big school, and there were several recruiters, and we did it cattle call style. And so there was probably about four people to one recruiter. And I remember just answering some basic questions about my personality and my preference. And I remember distinctly that I said costuming sounded fun. I thought, oh, costuming. I love stage and performing and shows. And I did some of that in high school. And the recruiter, she's like, you don't want costuming. And anybody who remembers knows that costuming was basically where the cast members went to pick up their costumes. It really had nothing to do with stage production. So it was dry cleaning and laundry, really. And so she took down my preferences, and let's see. So according to my flyer, that was March 6th, and I still have my offer letter from March 13th.
But mine's not in a scrapbook; it's in a folder. So
I found mine too. Yep.
Oh, you did find it.
Did you bring your offer letter down with you?
I don't.
Did you bring your offer letter down with you, just in case?
Possibly.
I had all that in a folder in my backpack, just in case. Just in case they couldn't find my name. No, it's right here.
That sounds like a very type A thing I would have done. Honestly, I just don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, I hung on to that letter, and but it was only about a week later that I got the offer. Talked to my parents about it, and made a decision within a pretty short time that I was going to do this. I saw it as a way out of a depressing, lonely experience on campus. And the only misgiving that I had, and that my parents also had, obviously, was, what do you mean you're taking a semester off of school? What? Like that's not part of the plan. Wait, can you get college credit for it? And unfortunately, I did not have quite the same experience that Jonathan did with his advisor. Mine had no idea what to do with me and sent me all the way up to the dean of the school. And I had to get permission from him. And I was not given any sort of independent study credit or anything. They really acted like they had never even heard of the program, which, to be fair, it wasn't that old yet. So I did end up taking one of the courses, but it was not for college credit. So anyway, I wish I had done Fall Advantage sometimes, because I really didn't have anything keeping me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from, over the summer. So I just agonized for the next, let's see, that was March. My check-in was August 7th. So like the next 5 months were pure agony of just waiting. Like, okay, here we go. And then finally it was time, there's more scrapbook here, to take an AirTran flight.
Yes, oh my gosh,
you're not the only one. I have mine too.
Faded. I could barely even read it anymore. Hey, yeah.
Man, my scrapbooks were lame as fuck compared to y'all.
I don't even have a scrapbook. I have a box.
The first few pages are done. That's it.
Yeah, I do have them, but they're packed away in a container in South Carolina.
That's so funny
right now. But yeah, mine are lame as fuck compared to yours. But maybe that's like the 2001 to 2002 difference.
Maybe it is, because I know that at least one of my roommates did also put together an elaborate scrapbook. Yeah, same flyer. That is great. Yeah, I poured my heart and soul into this thing, but well after I came home. Yep. So something that I did within a very short time of getting my offer letter was just start looking for online resources. And I don't even know what it was. It wasn't Google back then. I don't remember what it was. Alta Vista, Yahoo, perhaps.
It could have been Yahoo.
Ask Jeeves.
And next thing I know, I stumble into websites like WDW Info and CP Info, and just started connecting with other people through message boards, which led to AOL Messenger chat rooms, which led to me meeting people like this Yahoo over here, Mr. Zach 48. Oh man, I was right at the wrong point. I was actually a big fan of the
you're on my right, so I could do
this.
It's all backwards.
And so
tower.
through yes. through all of that, I was able to meet a lot of people online from all over the country. And pretty quickly, I actually created a website, probably on GeoCities. And people could go and leave their name, what school they were coming from, what their hometown was, and what their check-in date was. And maybe whether or not they were over or under 21, because wellness apartments, I know that was a new thing our year in 2002, having the wellness apartments. So at the time I was 19 turning 20. So it's definitely in a wellness apartment. And a lot of the people that I had met online and through this database and in chat rooms, and following people's life journals like Tara, which is how I knew that she also was a person on the college program.
Although that was well after. I didn't have
a
2004. But yeah, it's so funny that I met you through LiveJournal because you knew Jonathan, and Jonathan and I were friends through a message board, and you guys were friends because of Star Trek or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think it started in the AIM chat room.
Well, we were friends with the CP alumni. Yeah, we were friends because of the CP site.
Yes. Yeah. So through all of these,
because of that site and the AIM chat and everything else.
Nightly AIM chats. And so by the time I got to Florida, I came a day early and I organized a check-in party for about 30 to 35 CPs whose check-in day was August 7th. We showed up on the 6th. We went to, what is that jungle themed restaurant in downtown Disney?
Rainforest Cafe.
Rainforest Cafe. Went to Rainforest Cafe, and people meeting each other in person, like, oh, I'm Ria Lucia, hey, meeting people that we had been chatting with all summer because we were all checking in on the 7th. And there were 3 girls in particular that I had had a really friendly rapport with all summer. And we agreed ahead of time, like, hey, let's try to be roommates, because we heard that you could request roommates. And so when August 7th came, we all came to Vista Way, and I do remember sort of the factory conveyor belt of you take your packet. Hold on. You take your packet, you get your stamps. Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you get all of this information. Yeah. See, Kelly knows what's up. And you go from one station to the next to get, all the way checked in. And the 3 other girls and I stayed together. So we made sure that we were able to be roommates in Vista Way 2705. Not that we chose the number, but that was the number we ended up with. And then we had a 3-bedroom apartment. So there were 2 other girls there who also knew each other. They were actually sorority sisters at the same school. And they came down together. And so we all ended up together. And I just have this recollection of, picking bedrooms, claiming our spaces, and then we just sat around and talked for a couple of hours. And the first place we went was to Epcot. It was the 4 of us who knew each other from online. We went to Epcot. We rode Test Track. We got a picture, and we came home, and that was pretty much day 1. That was check-in. Unlocked a lot of memories. Yeah.
So you said you were in custodial. Did you? Because was it one of those things where if you were in operations, like you were assigned operations in your letter, but you could be. No. I think custodial was straight up custodial.
Yes, it did say in my offer letter, custodial hostess.
Okay, yeah. Because operations covered a lot of things, including parking attendant, as well as
front gate, front gate, and any kind of attraction.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So Jonathan and I both got lucky and that we were assigned operations, and it's one of those like, oh, please let us. So
It's the good kind of. It's the good kind of other. Operations is the good kind of other.
None of them are bad. None of them are bad jobs, but I don't think I would have like parking. I don't think I could have done parking because I have. Well, I've gotten used to it now because I've lived in the South for so long. But like I was from Connecticut, and extreme heat caused me a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you were it's good that they were at least honest that you're getting custodial, because let's be real, that's not exactly the poshest job. So
Not
what
a glamour job.
Yeah, what do you remember from like, you know, getting into like Epcot, doing the what was it, Days of Discovery or something?
Discovery Day.
Discovery Day.
Yeah.
Right.
So I seem to recall that we wouldn't have found out what our site was until maybe it was that first check-in day. That much. It actually says it on my little.
I thought it was the second check-in day.
No, it was on the check-in packet where it has your name, your arrival day, your departure day, your traditions day, like all of that, and it says custodial hostess, Epcot. Imagination custodial, which I didn't know what that meant until I showed up to my on the job training. Actually, the first part of which was at the Magic Kingdom. So the first couple of days we had, if you're in custodial, you have to take the bloodborne pathogens class. You have to know how to talk about vomit appropriately, protein spill.
I mean, attractions had to learn some of that stuff too.
I imagine there was some overlap. Yeah. And it wasn't until
we had to learn where to shove guests in the event of a tornado.
Oh, I didn't get to learn that part. Interesting. Yeah. Makes sense with attractions.
There are tunnels under this, and that's where the tornado shelter was.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That's your seat evacuation.
Gotcha. I remember being a little bit bewildered because I had only been to Epcot for the first time 2 years earlier. When I was a much younger kid, I did go to Disney World with my family, but we only went to the Magic Kingdom. So I knew it existed, but I really didn't know anything about it except like, oh, that's the one with the big golf ball. And the premise sounded kind of boring to me, to be honest. I wasn't all that interested. And when I went in 2000 with my parents, I really don't remember anything about that experience. So getting there and actually getting the tour and getting to know the history of the park, I'll just fast forward to the end. It became my favorite park of all time. But that, half as much nostalgia as anything else.
Because Epcot is my favorite park, and it's the only one I've not worked at. And it was my favorite park from the first time we went to Disney when I was not quite 10 years old.
Wow.
I loved the World Showcase.
Oh.
I loved Horizons too. I don't know if anybody else I guess
I missed that. It was closed by the time we got there.
That was back in 96.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I'm talking the summer of 92, I believe, is when I went to. It was like August of 92 when I went to Disney with my family for the first time. And I was the nerd kid who was like, this is my favorite. Like, obviously Animal Kingdom didn't exist. And MGM was kind of nothing at that point. There were like 3 rides there. It was very, very, very small. It was like Backlot Tour, Great Movie Ride, and Indiana Jones. Like Tower wasn't there, Coaster wasn't. None of that stuff was there.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I freaking loved the World Showcase. Like I remember being so obsessed with Epcot, and it's the only park I haven't worked at, so I hate all of you. I hate all 3 of you.
That's too funny. I think if I had known about the World Showcase, I would have been more interested. But the way that it was always explained to me was really more about Future World, which I thought like, I don't know. I was just so into the Magic Kingdom, I couldn't be bothered. So It was a complete surprise to me to work at Epcot and absolutely love it. So much so that like this is also a prominent feature page in my scrapbook. I think a certain familiar face is in there somewhere, Jonathan.
What?
Yes. Yeah. So that was, and Imagination, as it turned out to be, was my home base was the Imagination Pavilion, which we all just said IMAG. Oh, I work in IMAG, and that just meant that's where I clocked in. That's where I went to was it CDS, Cast Deployment System.
Yep.
My locker was there. Yeah. Wow. Memories.
CDS. So just like a random aside, CDS worked really well at Pirates, and it actually worked pretty well at Pizzafari, which is where I worked the summer of 2002. It did not work hardly at all when I was a manager for Sunset Ranch Market in Hollywood Studios. I still have trouble. I still have to think about it before I'm like, it's not. But yeah, it didn't really, and I think that was a part of it was that there were like too many employees. Anyone could have 80 employees on deck, right? And 13 locations. So we had people who were CDS, like they were regular cast members, but they got like a little bit of a pay bump, and they would get assigned to work CDS for the day, and they basically had to figure out who needed to go on break and stuff like that, because it could not handle that number of cast members and that number of locations. It's so crazy because the previous few places I worked, Pirates was so few people working there, even on busy days. And then even Pizzafari, even though it was a restaurant, it wasn't one of those big volume restaurants like Electric Umbrella or Cosmic Rays or, Sunset Ranch Market.
Yeah.
It worked for us. But yeah, it's so weird that I went from being like, yeah, CDS, it works, to being like, oh, CDS is the devil. CDS is the devil, and I hate it. Although there were times when I was at Pirates, especially, where I'd get there and work like an hour, and it would send me on my 45-minute lunch, and it's like, are you kidding me right now? I've got if I go on this lunch right now, I've got like 6 to 8 more hours of work after this, you assholes. With like, oh gosh, CDS. I wonder if it's still called that. Honestly, I honestly don't know.
But we didn't get it until the last 2 months of my program. Like before that, I mean, really, our location was pretty well oiled. There were only 4 people that worked communication stream forms. So it was, once we were fully staffed, breaks started and it just ran. Like we didn't really have a need for CDS, and then they put it in anyways. And we were like, okay, well, I guess sorry, I'm not giving you a break. I have to go like sweep for 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I forgot that it never gave us those assignments at Pirates, but it did I remember it giving me those assignments at Animal Kingdom. And we were, when it gave us assignments like that, we were supposed to go talk to the managers, because it was like, do you really need me to sweep for 15 minutes? Or do you want me to actually relieve somebody who needs a break? But that was super rare. So, okay. So on that note, now that we're all caught up, it's time to wrap up our summer 2002 experiences. I just want to go back to, as Kelly and I talked about in episode 2, Wet Hot Walt Disney World Summer. Lol. Still super proud of that episode title, FYI. The last month or so of my summer college program was mostly spent hanging out with someone from my 2001 program who was visiting the area. And I was basically just going back and forth to Sarasota and doing crazy fun stuff around Orlando. And of course, Kelly and I talked quite a bit about what she did also, because some of it was stuff that we did together, going to 8 seconds, and our friend almost not getting in because she didn't have her ID for some reason and stuff like that. But Jonathan, since you weren't on that episode, and Maria, since you're new, we'll start with Jonathan. What what about you? Any major highlights from the rest of the summer, like June, July, early August?
Oh boy, this is fun. Summer loving had me a blast. Summer loving happened so fast. Met some girls, crazy for me. Met some girls, cute as can be. Summer dreams just went drifting away. Oh, those summer nights.
You really committed to that.
I need to like RIP
wow, that was
John right now.
I didn't even think that up. That was
just passed away.
no, that
by the
was
way.
Yeah.
that was like
Yeah,
right on.
pour one
That
out.
was right on the spot.
Yeah. Pour one
But,
out for
let's see. Summer was awesome. Met a lot of great people. Highlights. It rained a lot. I got a lot of socks like super gross, having to walk through like the Lake Epcot, where Test Track was every single time because Rhea wasn't there cleaning up the leaves out of the trains. So it obviously flooded, and we had to use like a fucking canoe to get past it every night at 9 o'clock. So went through like a lot. It was really wet. Let's see. There was that. I discovered Moroccan food. So that's how I discovered couscous. And the Morocco Pavilion was that summer because they had 50% off dining there if you were a cast member. And a lot of good memories of just if you were working till 9 or 9:30, you could realistically get into the back, change in wardrobe to your street clothes, then go out the exit with the rest of the guests, take the monorail to TTC to Magic Kingdom, and you would get to Magic Kingdom as Spectral Magic was going down Main Street, which was great because that meant that all the guests were watching that stupid parade, and you could go on Splash Mountain with almost no wait at night.
I like that parade.
And it was fantastic. If you timed it even better, you could be going on Splash while the Fall Fantasy in the Sky was going. And then you would just get an ice cream sundae on Main Street and watch all the super tired, super exhausted families leave the park with their screaming children thinking, I'm never going to do this. And then 20 years later, what do you do? You go and take your little children into Magic Kingdom.
End up taking your two daughters.
But it's different because it's my children and they're angels sometimes. And Epcot exploded. I forgot about that.
Wait, what?
Did you guys talk about Epcot exploding?
No.
Remember that day where Epcot closed because like a transformer blew up at the site?
A spaceship
and
Earth.
So like everyone who worked, it was like powered like half the park that this transformer was responsible for. So they're like, well, we can't really open up Epcot, so park's closed for the day. Suck it, guests. Cast, you have the day off. And it was also like the hottest day of the year. And so all of us CPs, we all went in the pool on the hottest day of the year, which meant that the water was super hot, which meant it wasn't like fun at all. I mean, it was great there, but just the pool was like the worst pool experience of my life. Like the water was so warm. It wasn't even like hot tub level. It was like
just people soup.
It was bad. And of course my mom thought it pretty much was. And then my mom thought I died in that explosion because I didn't call her like that morning telling her that I was safe. And so she thought that I was the one working on the power systems for these massive transformers, and it exploded, killing me, a la Star Trek Next Generation. Anyways.
That's amazing. I can't believe I didn't hear about that. It would have happened bore I was there, obviously.
I can't believe it was.
I remember that day.
I don't, but that might have been after I left also.
I do remember because I remember some of my coworkers went to work at different parks, but I just got the day off. I was like, cool.
But, that was always the nice thing about Epcot, though, was that its hours didn't change. Unlike Magic Kingdom.
Oh, it's so consistent.
One of my roommates worked at the Emporium on the Magic Kingdom, like right there. And so her hours could be anywhere from, like 2 p.m. to 10 o'clock at night or later, especially around holiday times. But
yeah, back then Animal Kingdom was the same way. Like hours.
Well,
and where I worked, especially, it was like the earliest, there could be shifts that started at 8 if you were one of the prep chefs. So I definitely had a few of those, but because I mostly did prep chef stuff, but yeah, it was, no matter what, I was never working past 6 because our restaurant closed at 5. So even with like a dinner rush at the last minute, I never got out there past 6:15. And they also didn't want you getting out of there late because they didn't want to have to pay you overtime. So there's that.
Yeah.
So what about you, Maria? When you, what was your check-in date again? August 6th?
So August 7th.
Oh, 7th.
Yeah.
Close.
Yes.
So
My
you
birthday.
you came literally like days after I left. So the first like few weeks of your program were still, I mean, obviously it's still summer till September 20th, whatever, but before kids go back to school and stuff, like, what do you remember from your first few weeks? Was that any different from like how it progressed in the fall?
You know, I do remember it was still pretty crowded. Like I was saying, our first custodial on the job training days were at the Magic Kingdom. And that was probably for a good reason because it was very crowded. And so we had to kind of see, this is what it's like to clean a bathroom when there's 100 people flowing in and out of it in a short time span. And you just learn to get in and get out and like get what you need done, regardless of whether it is, at capacity day or it's the middle of September. And that's the funny thing is, first few weeks were busy, even at Epcot. And then it's like around Labor Day, it just slowed right on down. And that was probably the golden period where, especially when you had friends at different attractions throughout the park, you could say, I don't know, go on Space Mountain and then just go right on it again, because it was so slow that if you had a buddy there, they just let you stay on sometimes. And maybe that also depended on how lax the management was, or how much you could really get away with that because of the mechanics of the ride. But it went from pretty big crowds to thinning out, and slowing down a little bit all through September. And it was a lot. I mean, it was kind of intimidating learning, the lingo, making sure you're consistently. I was a big fan of the open palm as opposed to the 2-finger point myself. So I ended up giving a lot of directions, like, okay, you go through the breezeway and you take a left and then you'll see the monorail. You get on the monorail. That's where you go see Mickey and Minnie's castle, which is what people would sometimes call Cinderella's castle. Or
so, Rhea, how many times did people ask you for a fast track?
Not that often, actually. Probably because there weren't any big thrill rides on Future World West Side. Now, if I was out east where Test Track actually was, or was it fast? Can I get a fast test pass for Fast Track? I got a question about where Fast Track was.
They ask all the time. Where's Fast Track?
Test pass for the Fast Track.
Yeah, right. Through the breezeway, go straight.
Being at Interventions, we also ran a tip board, and right next to Penn Central, so you would get all the, hey, where's my test pass for the Fast Track? And there's right through the breezeway, 2 fingers, right through the breezeway, make a right, it's right in front of you, have a great time. Let me circle some other things on this map for you. Okay, have a great day here at Epcot.
Yep.
I want to also, Kelly, we'll get into the end of your summer as well, but real quick, I'll dive into my bullshit, honestly. So the very end of my program, toward the end of July, just as things are wrapping up, because this is like the not good part, my apartment became this like super, it had been like kind of toxic and hostile off and on like all summer, but it became an even more toxic and hostile environment at the end. We had this one roommate who just all summer had been turning the air conditioning down literally to the lowest it could possibly go. And we talked about this I think it was in my episode with Kelly, but it could have been the first episode as well, where I had to buy an extra comforter. So cold in my apartment. So I had to buy another comforter and whatever. It had been a long summer, let me tell you. And the few times I was sleeping in my apartment, because it was very few, it got worse and worse. And then it all came to a head on my last night there when the problematic roommate and another roommate who I think it was like her immediate roommate started screaming at our friend of Mickey Mouse roommates at like 3:30 in the morning for throwing out some of their expired food that was in the fridge. Like, this is my last night, right? And it woke me up. Them screaming at her woke me up, and I had to stomp out into the common area and have it out with them because, again, like I said, they were the ones who kept messing with the air conditioning, leaving pots full of cooked food sitting on the stovetop for days. Like, just
Yeah.
And also, how is someone supposed to know that they shouldn't toss expired food when we were all supposed to be moving out the next day and had to clean up, you know? So yeah, that was like my last night there, and I had to drive the next day. By the way, I had to drive to, I think, Virginia the next day. So that was a miserable like last night experience. However, aside from that, the very end of my summer was great. I had gone to PI with some of my college program people and randomly ran into some of my full-time Pirates coworkers from fall 2001 who I hadn't seen all summer, but they were there and I was there with some of my CP friends. And so I randomly ran into them. We got back in touch. And to be honest, that's why we're still in touch, like why I'm still in touch with some of these people to this day, which is crazy because fall 2001, the full-timers, like there wasn't really any good way to figure out how to keep in touch with them. So randomly running into them was great. And then as soon as I was done with work for good, which I think I had the last like 3 or 4 days of my college program off. So as soon as I was done with work for good, I went and got my tongue pierced.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, my friend Amanda, who is one of Kelly's roommates, had her tongue pierced, and I had my belly button pierced. So she went with me to get my tongue pierced, and then like a couple days later, I went with her to get her belly button pierced. Because these are the things you do in 2002, I guess.
You know, that's funny because I have a picture from my freshman year of college, and I was on the color guard squad, and there were no fewer than 4 or 5 girls who had their tongues pierced. And in high school, I knew a lot of girls who had their belly buttons pierced. And that's a thing I forgot that we just did.
Yeah.
So now there are 40-year-olds walking the earth who are like,
I mean, I don't have mine anymore.
Yeah.
Because like 14 years later, I finally had to get rid of it. Not even for work or whatever, because I went back and worked for Disney.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Manager, and I would just take it out. I had a clear plug, I think, actually, that I would put in. But when I was like 35 or 36, like 2016, 2017, it got to a point where I was using, it was a metal bar, but plastic balls. And I swallowed the plastic ball like twice in the course of like a year. And that had never happened before. So I have no idea what the hell I was doing in my sleep. Because it was always in my sleep, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank God the bar always stayed through my tongue, right? But so I took that out. But also, it's bad for your gums, children. It's bad for your gums. Even when you have the plastic ones, it wears away at the back of your gums. So it's bad for your gums. So yeah, eventually I had to take that out. Don't have a tongue pierced anymore. But you know, so that was like a fun thing that my friend and I got to do together. Like, she didn't have her belly button pierced. I didn't have my tongue pierced. So we switched off, you know, it's cool. My friend from Connecticut, who had actually driven down at the beginning of the summer with me, flew down to Orlando to drive back with me. We went to the parks for a day. And then like, bam, it was over. And looking back now, it felt like I was there forever at the time. But I looked up the dates, and it was May 22nd to August. It was either 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I think it was August 2nd. So 2 months and
barely 2 months. Yeah.
2 months and 10 days, which is crazy because nowadays 2 months seems like no time at all. Like absolutely no time at all. I will say this before we touch on like the end of Kelly's summer and get into y'all's experiences in the fall. if I hadn't gone back on that summer program, and I complained about being in foods, right? Like, I didn't actually have a bad foods experience. Like, first of all, working at Animal Kingdom, the hours weren't bad. Second of all, I was prep chef most of the time, so I rarely had to be like front and center with people. I never worked register. There was like one college program kid who'd been there since the beginning of, like, since January, who had eventually been trained for a register, but it was a lot of full-time people that did register there. So I rarely had to deal with people, which isn't like, I like being with people. I loved it at Pirates, etc. But in foods, no thanks. But the fact that I got that job made it easier for me to come back as a seasonal cast member, which I did for winter breaks, spring breaks, summer breaks, throughout college and just after, until it got really difficult to be a seasonal cast member, which was like 2005 or so that they changed it. But it was because I worked in foods that I ended up with a management position.
That makes a lot of sense.
I never would have ended up. It is nearly impossible to just walk into management at Disney when you've just been an attractions cast member. Like, those attractions managers have been there for frickin' ever.
Wow.
But I got my management job because it was in foods and I'd been in foods. And obviously there were other things, like, clearly I was a good candidate and they liked me and I did a great, I hate to, pat myself on the back, but I like excelled at everything they put in front of me. Like, when we went through all the restaurant management tests and everything, I got like 100s on everything. And they were like, oh, nobody gets 100. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is like common sense. Okay. But yeah, so it was because of that I ended up with that management experience, which was also an amazing freaking experience. And I wouldn't have had that if I had been trying just for like an attractions management job like years later. So I am, in the end, very grateful for being stuck, quote unquote, in quick service restaurants my summer of 2002. Now, okay, so Kelly, real quick, the end of your summer, like end of July, August, whatever, before the big, everybody's back in school, the summer's over type of thing, did you have any interesting experiences?
I mean, not really. I don't really remember that end. I mean, I remember like you leaving. And then, I don't know, just random stuff. I remember I used to, Ryan and I used to go to freaking Steak and Shake at like 3 a.m. because we were bored. We'd just be like, oh, we're awake. We don't have to work in the morning. Like, let's just go to Steak and Shake. And I don't know, just stupid stuff like that. But I don't really remember a lot about, working during the end of the summer part. Like, I kind of remember some more stuff in the fall than I do like that.
Well, and we've already had some discussion in the previous episodes, both the first one with Jonathan and the second one that I did with just Kelly, surrounding the differences between my fall 2001 program and the 2002 program in general, namely that immediately after my program ended, from then on, everyone under 21 was automatically placed in a wellness department. Sorry, guys, that was absolutely our fault. But of course, y'all also didn't have, that major world event, 9/11, take place during your program. So
listen, that didn't stop us.
Well, but like, so I'm sure it didn't. It didn't stop me that summer either. But so because you guys didn't have 9/11 happen, I know your fall was very different from my fall the previous year. And I'm curious about the things that changed for us that might have been back to normal while you were there. For instance, people still went to Disney in the fall of 2001, but the only times it ever felt crowded was on like major holidays. And even then it was nothing like it had been for previous Thanksgivings, Christmases, and New Year's. And honestly, I've been there over, I haven't been there over Thanksgiving or Christmas since my fall 2001 program, but I've been there over New Year's. And even then it was like still nothing like it would have been before, I think. I know now it's insane. But back then, even though it was really crowded those holidays for me in the fall of 2001. I know we knew it wasn't anywhere close to what it had been in previous years.
Yeah.
In the in between times, sometimes it felt like we practically had the parks all to ourselves. So summer is over. Kids are back in school. What was it like for you guys in the months between the summer rush, such as it was that year, and the holidays? Let's go with Jonathan first and then Maria and Kelly again.
So it was pretty awesome because you could, I mean, September, you had full run of the parks. Like there was one time we legitimately did Space Mountain 6 times in a row where you get off and they're like, you want to ride again? Yes. Okay. Well, you got to get off anyways, or we'll Cascade, go up the exit and just get on again. And yeah, so I was pretty sick after that. But yeah, it was. But what was nice was that Epcot gave you the consistent hours, the consistent 40 hours a week, just consistent times, things like that. So you didn't have to worry too much about money or anything of that nature. And, tourism was still trying to recover. So you could get some pretty good deals. Like you go to Universal for, next to nothing. You could do Halloween Horror Nights for next to nothing as well. Like I think we paid maybe $50 for the Frequent Fear Pass that covered the entire Halloween Horror Nights. Yes, please. So we went like 2 or 3, 4 times, something like that, just because. Can't go wrong with that. That was my big things. And then just as the program went on, like people just started getting more and more, I would say, in their routines. Like, program starts, everyone's super outgoing, everyone's very, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's, meet random strangers and hang out with them. And then people started getting in their routines and, see us in colleges and, whatever else is too. And they're just like, I just want to go back to my apartment. I want to stay in my little bubble. I have a bubble now. Like, I don't want to do anything else. And so it was starting to like die down a little bit. And then Thanksgiving rolls around. The week before Thanksgiving, weirdly enough, I thought was deader than September. Like at least in September, you had all the childless couples and things like that would come down and hang out. Week before Thanksgiving, nobody traveled. Like that was the only time I was able to do Test Track twice without getting off. So one of the rare Disney achievements.
Maria, what about you?
That's all I got to say about that.
Well, fall was like your big,
yes, that
your
was
thing, right? So
that was what I was there for. Yeah, coming in at the tail end of summer meant that when I really started getting to the pocket with the job, it was really slow. And Jonathan mentioned the 50% off cast member discount at the Moroccan Pavilion, and that was how I got introduced to it. In fact, it was through him when we met up in person after I came to the program, and we went with a third cast member friend, and we, went and had lunch there, and we were one of maybe 3 or 4 tables in the entire restaurant. It was just really slow, and it was almost eerie, especially in such a big park like Epcot, how empty it feels when it's at a fraction of its capacity. So it did seem that it was very slow all the way through September and really didn't start picking up even a little bit until getting later into October, because there was the not so scary Halloween parties, which were at Magic Kingdom and not Epcot, but still things like that do tend to attract a little bit more crowds. So, things like started picking up a little bit more through October. November started getting a little bit more crowded, but not that bad. And then I do remember working in November during Thanksgiving, and it was busy, but probably compared to the next couple years afterwards, it's probably nothing. I guess I didn't have a whole lot of basis for comparison because I had never been there in the fall before. But definitely fast forwarding a little bit to New Year's Eve, that we did not quite reach capacity that night, but it was all hands on deck, very crowded because Epcot turned into just one big all night party. That's like the one time it's open really, really late. But other than that, it was, steady Eddie. It opens at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I don't know. Illuminations, boom, you're done. And I always knew that when Illuminations was starting, that was my cue. Like, okay, I'm going to do one last trash run. I'm going to go close the bathrooms and pull all the trash in there. And usually by the time I was done, the crowds would be leaving Epcot. Like the show was over. So you can just you start to get into a rhythm and time things after a while when you're at a park that has such a steady rhythm like Epcot did.
You could straight set your watch to Illuminations.
My first week or two, maybe even 3, that I actually would just go watch Illuminations for a while and then go do the trash.
I mean, fall 2001 when I was at Magic Kingdom, and this is something I talked about in my first iteration of this series, my 20-year reunion for 2001, was Fantasy in the Sky was every night.
Yeah.
I remember it was 7 or 7:30. I think it was 7:30 because even though there was no one there, they still had to do the fireworks because fireworks have an expiration date, or at least at Disney they do, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very often where we would be walking across the stage to get to the tunnels from Pirates in Magic Kingdom, and Fantasy in the Sky is going on above us. And like you said, clockwork. I will say that I think that the idea of a downtime at Disney, now let's discount obviously 2020 and probably even early 2021. Still super limiting entrance into the parks and everything, which I don't think they're doing anymore. But up until, actually, I'm trying to think. I went to Disney November of last year, November of 2021, and it was absolutely crazy. Now, granted, it was a race weekend, a Run Disney weekend, so that's
okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think the idea of an actual dead time at Disney, while it didn't really stop happening until probably the mid 20-teens or so, it was a long time after we were there, because I mean I used to go, I would always plan my Disney trips during dead times, and they weren't dead like they were in the fall of 2001, but you could still go in over Halloween or in mid-September, and it would be slow enough where the longest wait is 45 minutes for a popular ride. And that has happened in a lot. I would love to take my family to Disney World because none of them have ever been, my husband and my 2 stepkids, but I mean, they're Californians, man. They've been to Disneyland.
Well, okay, yeah, they got the OG out there.
But
yeah.
I mean, I say that, but I think they've been to Disneyland. The kids haven't been there but once. So, and also different animal entirely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dead times don't really exist anymore, and I'm sad about that because people just apparently take their kids out of school. I don't know.
I guess so. Yeah. People are going to go to Disney come hell or high water. And I have heard that increasingly, there's really no such thing as a really slow period like it was when we were college students.
Or even years after, honestly.
Yeah.
Years and years after. So Kelly, what about you? What do you remember from the fall of 2002 in terms of I mean, you guys all worked at Epcot too, which is I feel like I'm not getting a fair and balanced
right?
All right, I didn't put ships anywhere else until I was on my second program.
Whatever. I hate all of you for working at Epcot.
Yeah.
You should have invited, because then you would have a Magic Kingdom perspective. Oops.
I don't know, the crowds, I remember them slowing down and everything, but for some reason, because I worked New Year's Eve and I worked in the front, I was gateway, so I was Leave a Legacy, I was strollers, I was the photo store and gateway gifts, I was all up there. So we were Leave a Legacy, I think I was standing over there, and I thought what I remember, they closed the park at 11 o'clock, like that morning. Like maybe like some people left and but I remember them saying like, we're at capacity.
Oh, maybe they were. Yeah.
Because I was like right up there at front and we would, talk to the people and they were like, we're done. We're at capacity. And that was like early in the morning, but then they could have, reopened. I don't know. But I know I remember that, those times, that crazy times. And I worked in like the photo. So just talking about people leaving the park after eliminations. I worked in the photo when you had to go in and like look at your photos and like get them printed and do all that. And that was insane. Like that was nuts. The lines of people waiting until the very last minute to come do that. And I remember my sister, because my sister did the college program and then she did what's it called?
The professional internship or the advanced internship?
Advanced, yeah, or something. And so she was there at the same time, and her friends came in with her video camera during the busiest time. And she was like, I didn't even know. I'm like oblivious, and I'm just like doing this, and I'm running around. And then finally they're like, Kelly, and I'm like, oh. And you just see my face. I'm like, thank you. I'm like, go away. I'm busy. I do remember, and this has nothing to do with like the crowds and stuff, but something that always stood out. It was in the fall because we went to the Mickey's Not So Scary, and for some reason back then it was cheap to go. I don't remember the exact price, but I don't remember it being 100 and whatever it is now. But we had inventory that night, so we had to work overnight. But a couple of us decided, let's go to the Mickey's Not So Scary and then go to work overnight. And so, yeah.
To be that young again.
Right? We were like, it'll be fine. It's fine. Well, while we're at the party, we decided to get our faces painted, And I had like the little glittery like wings off my eyes, but one of my coworkers got his entire face painted like Tigger. And
that's not Disney look.
And I don't know who else did something. So we leave the party, we get to Epcot, we're in the back, we all walk in the back, and one of the managers goes, what's going on? And we were like, we just came from the Halloween party, and he was like, okay. And he goes, you know what? I don't care. It's overnight. There's no guests. Whatever. Do what you want. And we were like, okay. So he let us work like that all night. I remember because I got at like 8 a.m, went to, my sister was working at the International, what was their apartments called? The Commons or something. Is that what it was called? Yeah.
Adam?
So
no, they were in the Commons.
The Commons.
Yeah, the Commons.
Yeah, so we go, and she took a picture of me. I was so tired, and I just had all this glitter, like, wings on my face. Yeah, it was bad. It was fun, though. That was pretty fun.
So Kelly's talking about Disney looks and then going to work. I did get my hair cut once at the Main Street Barbershop. Just once, because I couldn't get a time at Kingdom Cutters or Airport or whatever else, and they offered a cast member discounts. You could get it done. It looks great. They do a good job. And I think I had done it like once or twice before, so I was pretty comfortable with it. And I didn't have to clock in until later. So I'm like, hey, it's great. I'll get my hair did, and then hop over to Epcot and start my shift. So I get my cast member haircut, number 2 short. Looks great, looks fresh, looks great. And then he's finishing up and he's like, all right, now for the final touch. I'm like, no, don't do it. As he's throwing glitter, like the Mickey Mouse cocaine glitter in my hair. I'm like, no, I have to work. No. Oh, God. I still tip. Don't worry. But that shit does not get out easily. So I spent, a good like 20 minutes in the bathroom trying to get everything out. And let me tell you, no matter how hard you try, it was still in there.
So in the cosplay
and every
world,
manager came over. And you went to, Main Street Barbershop before you came here, didn't you? Yeah, I did. I tried to get it all up. All right. Everyone
In the cosplay
noticed.
world, we call glitter like cosplay herpes. Like, which is that might be like a thing that you're not supposed to say anymore. If it is, I haven't heard it, but it gets everywhere and you can't get rid of it. So I wanted to bring up like how much it has changed. Once the Disney look was mentioned, I wanted to bring up how much it has changed.
Oh yeah.
Because this was during my
hairstyles for men.
This is during my management internship, but I actually got like hey, Tara, go fix your hair, because apparently my highlights were too chunky. I still like looking back, I'm like, they weren't though. It was like my hair was dark blonde and I had highlight. It wasn't chunky and unnatural, but it was 2006. So for them, I guess, they said my highlights were too chunky. So I went and bought a box of dark brown hair dye and dyed my hair dark brown. And I walked into work the next morning and they were like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't need to do that. And I was like, I mean, listen.
You said fix my hair.
You said my highlights were too... Well, I wasn't about to go pay, right, to get my hair fixed somewhere at $32,500 a year when my apartment is $800 a month. I'm working as a Disney manager. So, yep, my hair was dark brown for a while. Don't ever ask me to share those pictures. There's like one of them. But I do think it's interesting, and I also like it how much they've relaxed the Disney look standards, because they were pretty ridiculous.
They were very, very prescriptive and stringent, and
like you could have a mustache but not a beard, which is just weirdly 70s, like gross.
Unless you were Joe Rody, Imagineer extraordinaire.
Right. If you were an onstage cast member, you could.
Yes, I remember the unacceptable beard or even mustaches for police.
But a mustache is fine. Gross. Also, guys can have longer hair now. Hair coloring is allowed. If it's a naturally occurring color. So like they don't allow like bright colors, but I think my supposedly chunky highlights would be okay now when they weren't in 2006. Nail polish is allowed.
That's development.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's allowed everywhere, because I feel like you were allowed to have natural nail polish when I was
like nudes,
but you weren't allowed to have nail polish at all if you worked anywhere in foods. But there's it seems like there's not a distinction between one people can have it and another can't. Tattoos, like the tattoo thing is a big thing, because they can't be on the face, head, or neck. That's weird, because I feel like I have tattoos on the back of my neck. So apparently I still can't work at Disney because I have two tiny tattoos on the back of my neck. And if I wear my hair up, you might be able to, like, you could see them, I guess.
I might be okay with it then if your hair was down. But
well, no,
I really want to do that.
I mean, and this is they relaxed these standards fairly recently, but when I moved to Florida in 2016 and I was applying for jobs, it was like, if you're in an office job, which was what I was applying for, it was fine. But I was looking at some of the on-stage jobs just out of curiosity, and it said that if you have tattoos on your neck now, but here's the thing, like, is it the front of it? That feels like,
I feel like they're probably thinking of the side to the front.
Yeah, right. So
that would be my assumption.
But I like that they do allow visible tattoos as long as they're not like offensive. Like I had a friend who, he was actually one of my cast members when I was a manager at Sunset Ranch Market. He didn't have the tattoos at the time, but he stayed at Disney. I think he went home and then went back to Disney like a year later after he graduated college. and he was working in merchandise, not foods, but he had gotten a tattoo of like the D20s, like the you know, like what you think of as Dungeons and Dragons dice, right? On his eye, on his forearm. And he had to wear a nude colored long sleeve shirt all the time, even though he was outside a lot of the time. And I was like, dude, why did you get those tattoos if you're going back to Disney? That seems like a bad idea. I love your commitment to D&D, but like, you know.
It was very real. I remember being paranoid because I had dyed my hair a dark auburn color that was a plausible color. Actually, a lot of people didn't know it was not my real natural color. And I was so afraid of the Disney look that I had it dyed actually darker than my hair is not actually true black. It is a very, very dark brown. So it was even darker than it really was. And that was strange. And then I got to the program and saw what some people were getting away with. I was like, oh, I totally could. I didn't need to dye my hair.
Apparently my child highlight for too much.
The thing though that I was really glad to hear that they finally gave up a few years back was making it mandatory that if you were in a professional role or any role as a woman wearing a skirt, you didn't have to wear nylons anymore. I did a second internship after I graduated college. I had to wear nylons if I wanted to show my leg in Orlando, Florida.
Stupid. Like,
miserable.
What kind of 1970s, 80s bullshit is that? Who wears nylons? Like,
welcome to Disney.
Yeah.
As late as 2005, we were definitely still wearing nylon.
Oh no, absolutely. It was still that way in 2006, and I never wore a skirt to work. Never. I always wore pants. Always. I mean, at least they let us all wear pants, I guess, because that probably wouldn't have been allowed like 4 years before or something.
I was gonna say they were probably late to that.
You're femme presenting. You have to wear a skirt all the time. You know, some things are obvious, closed-toe shoes, etc. But come on, nylons. Like, nobody likes wearing nylons, and also, like, how many pairs of nylons did you get?
So many. I'm pretty sure I had to buy a pair at least once every other week, if not more frequently. But again, that was my second internship, and I only sometimes wore skirts for that very reason. Like, I'm a little cute. But, like my nylons are like they've got a run in them, so I got to wear those slacks today. But on my college program internship, those white costumes actually were pretty comfortable, and because it was so hot, after a while you got to realize, oh, this is a blessing. I'm in like white cotton. It was kind of light, and I was mostly comfortable. And it wasn't until late November through like when I left in early January that I did have like a jacket, like a company issued jacket to wear.
I'm not sure which was worse. The polyester pirate's costume that weighed like 20 pounds. I mean, it didn't, but it felt like it, right? The pants were super thick. And they've changed them since then, but like the pants are super thick. And then we had like, I think the shirt we wore actually was linen, but the vest over it was like velvet with a lining, and the pants were heavy. They were so heavy. But thankfully at Pirates, you weren't really outside all that much. I know now they're out in the sun because the line gets longer. But back when I was there, we were, even as greeter, you were almost always in the shade. But then at Pizzafari, it was an indoor restaurant and it was air conditioned. So it wasn't, even when you're working in the kitchen, which is what I did most of the time, it wasn't super uncomfortable, but it was still like what we were wearing, it was thin and it was this sort of like silky satiny polyester that it wasn't when you were at work that was the problem. It was like if you're working later in the day, which I usually went to work at 10, but if there were no bikes available, it was like a 1.5 mile walk from my car to where I worked. And there were almost never bicycles available, because that was a thing. They provided Animal Kingdom was bicycles because it was so big, but they were only by the people who got there earlier, and nobody's getting off work early enough, right? For
To
their,
bring them back.
it's super rare that they're available for you to ride to work if you're on a 10 a.m. shift. So that like 1.5 mile walk at 10 a.m. in the summer Orlando heat in this like silky, satiny polyester that just, you start sweating and it sticks to you. I think that might have been worse than the Pirates polyester. Well, Kelly, you got to wear shorts, so.
I did. We had
nylons.
Okay, but so
with the skirt you have to wear nylons.
Let me show you. So we got to wear polos and khaki shorts, right? But those Leave a Legacy shirts, these ones, were terrible. They were terrible.
Yeah, they look sick.
Yeah, they were awful. But the polo, like there's me, the polo and the shorts, yeah, that was fine.
And Jonathan's down here with me, like, I got to work in air conditioning all the time.
Yeah, snappy little vest. Now, look at me. I'm on a segue.
When you were, it's my little black hot pants. Yep, I believe you coined that, Rhea. So I had black pants that were like polyester pants. They made me look great, and blue shirt and the gray vest. And when you went outside, it was death. They clung up on you, just like sucked up, and it was like Spanx before Spanx became a thing. And then the moment you walk inside Interventions, I mean, it's just poof, it just pops out, and everything
really
becomes nice and loose fitting again, and it's just like an aura of relief. But I had a few summer colds during my program because you would just keep going in air conditioning, out of air conditioning, in, out. So you would always catch summer colds. And I still can't escape that to this day because I go into data centers now, which are, of course, like the temperature of Antarctica. Yeah, there's stupid cold. And then you go outside and, oh, hey, it's summer and it's 90 degrees outside this data center. So enjoy catching a cold again.
I remember having to get the pea coats, the big black pea coats. Because when we worked at Leave a Legacy, you would have to go stand underneath Spaceship Earth. And underneath Spaceship Earth is like this massive wind tunnel. And when it was cold, like you were just standing there just shivering, freezing. I remember that so well. And standing at Leave a Legacy, you're just standing there. And so we all had our pea coats on.
I wanted one of those pea coats so bad, but all we had was like a light spring jacket for our Interventions costume. So even though it was like, middle of, December, you still could only get away with like a light spring coat, and that was it.
But also, like, middle of December at Disney is like, how cold did it actually get? I mean, for us in 2001, it got down into like the 50s, I think. In the
sounds about right.
At the time, me being from Connecticut, I was like, this isn't that bad. I was like going swimming on my birthday in mid-December when it was like 75 degrees, right? Like,
that's true. You could. I think it was when the sun went down. That's when it actually got cold.
For us, it rained all Christmas Day, and I got sick from it. And that is the worst time to get sick as a Disney employee because you're not supposed to call out. You can get in big mad trouble for calling out. But I was like, I am like incapacitated because I stood out in the rain doing a parade shift on Christmas Day for like 4 or 5 hours. So that was fun.
That'll do it.
Oh, fun. I guess last thoughts on your fall programs, and talk to me about leaving and how it changed your lives as a whole, please.
I remember towards the end of the program, and I remember the night before I had to leave, a bunch of us went to watch Illuminations together. So my last night there, we went and watched Illuminations, and then we were up all night cleaning the apartment, packing our stuff, like getting ready to go. And while I was on my college program, I remember my parents had called me because I lived in Arkansas at the time when I was going to college, and I went to Disney. But while I was down there, my parents called and told me they were moving to Michigan. So, and they weren't coming down to pick me up. I had to fly. So I had to leave a lot of stuff with my sister to ship back. And then, because I was like, I can't take all this stuff on an airplane. And so we were up all night. I think I still have pictures of like me and Amanda, Jessica, like sitting there, like all just like our hair everywhere. We're all sad. I remember going up and talking to the guys upstairs. I had video of, talking to people. And then I have like this little book that people wrote in. So like all my work coworkers, like roommates, things, and just like messages and everything. And I remember going home, or new home, Michigan. My parents were from, or my dad was from there. So I had never lived in Michigan. I left palm trees and flew into like snow, and my mom standing at the airport with a giant winter jacket waiting for me to get off the plane. I was like, where am I? And so I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have friends, I didn't know anybody. And it was like, what do I do now? All my friends are, from Florida and everything. And so it was just like keeping in touch with them, like just constantly, emailing and whatever, talking all the time. And until I started going to school there, and then actually became a campus rep for the college program. So I did that for a little bit while I was there. Because I was like, I didn't want to let go. You were just like, I still want to be a part of it. It was hard. It was hard to leave because I had moved out and lived in the dorms when I started in college. But yeah, it was just hard. It was really hard. And I remember coming back or now living in Florida, and I went to the parks one day, and I was at Magic Kingdom, and we're watching the fireworks, and I see this group of kids, like college, age kids, and they're all crying and they're hugging, and I'm like, their college program is over. Like, I just knew it. I could tell. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, I know. I see it. I know.
So for me, we talked about how it kind of started to die down a little bit, as it started to become November timeframe. And then by like Thanksgiving, we started to get in our South American friends. So, your Brazil, Argentina, Peru. So, they had all these internationals because it was summer for them. So they came up on an ICP for basically, I think it was like from November to February. And that like grew new life into Vista because they were here to party, and they weren't going to let some like lame ass Americans stop them. And man, it was awesome to have that new breath of life, to meet new people. They were all super outgoing, maybe more outgoing than what we're used to. So that was great as well. And that it was a lot of fun, to kind of make the end of it. But, talking about the end, I was a bad roommate. I may have gone to Pleasure Island on my last night to see this girl that I was slightly dating. And, it was supposed to be, oh yeah, I'm going to go for just an hour and then I'll come back. And then I may have been there until 1:30, and then got back to the apartment, and they had already finished cleaning except for the bathroom. So I was up till 4 cleaning the bathroom because, again, I was a very bad roommate. And then I was the worst. It was my first time living with other humans that weren't related to me. Okay, give me a break. So anyways, so we go find some like shady ass hotel on 192 to stay at for a couple days because we had booked a Disney cruise. So we took advantage of our cast member discount, got a Disney cruise. I think it left on, we were done on the 3rd, left on the 5th. So we had worked out agreements with our leaders to let us keep our IDs until the 10th, which was awesome. And we just went to the parks for a couple days, and then did the Disney cruise, and that was a lot of fun as well. And that was my first cruise. Yeah. So my first cruise was a Disney cruise. So that was a lot of fun. And then they dropped me off at the airport and told me to get the hell out of the car. But, leaving, I was so sad. I cried at the airport. I was a little wobbly baby, but I did become a campus rep. So, they were still running that program back then. And, I found out, I applied, and, I got a phone call from the, regional cast member who was in charge of, our sector, if you will. And he actually also went to RIT. So, I'm like, all right, sweet. I might have a little bit of an in. So went to the interview, kind of dressed up a little bit, found a belt finally, and then went to it. And, we had a good chat. And he's like, we never really had a campus rep at RIT. So you'd be like the first person to do this. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So it's going into this situation completely blind. Okay, how do you set up all, basically like a recruiting effort on campus? But, instead of like for the CIA, it was for Mickey Mouse. So same level of scrutiny there, but it was great. I still got to keep in touch. Some other reps came on board, as I had done my thing. So that was really nice. Got to make some friends at RIT that way. One of them was in hospitality. So got to meet a lot of her friends and made friends at RIT that way. So that was a big thing for me. So it was still really tough. And I was still basically an outcast at that school because now you're happy-go-lucky, outgoing personality at a tech school with people that are the absolute opposite of that. So
Disney pointing people across campus and
hey, what's going on?
Each and every person.
Oh God, yeah, holding open doors, you name it. So we found the alumni hangout again, and we found a lot of other 2002 alums, and kind of got back into our groove of chat rooms and things like that. And I reconnected with Rhea. We both got really busy during our program. Not like that, but like we just had life get in the way, so we were able to reconnect, and that was just the best thing. And then I got to meet Tara and
basically introduce me to Rhea.
Yeah,
you're welcome. But Rhea is still the longest friend that I have.
Wow, over 20 years now.
I'm forever grateful because of that.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends from my 2001 program. I can't say that like Kelly is my longest friend, but I will say that I have seen Kelly more, hung out with Kelly more, and spent more time with Kelly because we both do, run Disney. I've got my cup right here. I finished the water that was in it, but I got my cup.
Oh gosh! So the last days of my college program was really like the last few grains in an hourglass. So New Year's Eve at Epcot, like Kelly was saying, was bonkers crazy. So that was my last day of work, and it was a Tuesday, and I only know that because I still have my telecast here in my scrapbook, but I'm not going to pick it up again. And that was the only time that I worked, past 9 o'clock because Epcot normally closed at the same time every night. And I remember I was on a 12-hour shift. So I was probably scheduled from something like 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 1 o'clock a.m., something like that. And I had the radio, which I normally didn't have, at least not so late in the night. And it was that day was a blur. It was so crowded, and we were just trying to keep up. And afterwards, a bunch of my fellow cast members, other college program students, and maybe one or two that were actually full-timers that just hung out with us because they were really young. We went to a Denny's, and we just sat around just shooting the shit together at Denny's until about 7 o'clock in the morning. And one of my friends, who I remember, he was actually a full-time cast member, but he was about our age. And I had driven with him, and he locked himself out of his car. So the parking lot of Denny's, and I happened to have AAA, even though I didn't have a car. And so I called AAA, got his car unlocked. He dropped me off, Vista Way, and my roommates were, cleaning and a little bit, but because our departure date, I think, was the 3rd or the 4th of January. So I think the next day I may have just gone to a park or two with some other people who happened to have the day off. And I do remember just the mad dash to, clean and pack and ship a couple boxes home because I was flying home. And then just get rid of, just straight up, we had laundry baskets full of crap that we just left. I don't know where, outside our door probably, or by the dumpsters, because building 27 was towards the front of the entrance, right next to the pool and the education building. And it was funny, I was chuckling, John, because I was listening.
I was in building 28.
You were my neighbor. Because
probably
I had a thing for. I was thinking of building 26. There was an apartment of guys in building 26 that I like to hang out with. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah,
story. But yes, Jonathan, I was watching the replay of part 1, and you guys were talking about the apartment buildings. The numbering made no sense because John's building was 24, mine was 27. They were complete opposite sides of Vista Way. But, just trying to see some people, one last time, get one last in at the park, use up our cast member coupons. Remember that? We got 40, 50% off of things. Yeah, trying to use everything up and just squeeze every last drop out of that experience before going to the graduation ceremony and taking a picture in which all of us looked really toe up. Just those last few days were rough, and we were good girls. The 3 girls that I had met before the college program, we ended up being the last 4 in the apartment because one girl ended up moving out. We had drama with her. She had drama with everybody. She ejected herself from our apartment. I don't know what became of her. The other girl got so homesick at Christmas time that she quit and just went home.
Or it was ending? Oh my God. Just suck it up for a week.
Yeah. How can you do that to your teammates? What the hell?
Yeah. So she self-termed and left. So they had that front room in the 3-bedroom apartment. And so one of my roommates and I, we got along great. We were the 2 Virgos. So we were both when it came to cleanliness, type A. Our room was always neat. I loved it. It was Michelle was a great roommate. And our other 2 roommates, they still stayed in their room, but Michelle and one of the girls from the other room kind of claimed the front bedroom bathroom as their own, and they hung out in that room. So fine, you guys are responsible for cleaning it. We're not going to clean it at the end of the program. And I do distinctly remember that I was cooking for everybody because I said, all right, listen up, girls. We have all this food we got to get rid of. I am taking whatever is in this kitchen and I'm just going to cook for the last 2 days, especially since they were all working right up till the very end and I wasn't. So, but yeah, we were all pretty sleep deprived, just trying to stay up late and get things done. And we went to that graduation ceremony. And then I just remember the very last night, maybe into early morning, because I do have a picture of the 4 of us that was taken right outside near the bus depot, because I think 1 or 2 of us was taking the Mears shuttle to the airport early in the morning. And it's a good thing this was 2002 because it wasn't digital pictures. It was kind of those blurry film pictures, but we puffy from crying and we really had a moment. We had become very, very close as roommates by the very end. And I was going back to Pittsburgh first, back home for a few days, and then being driven to back to Kent State. And I was absolutely gutted. I was really, really sad to leave, some of the best friends I've ever made in my life, going on to like stay connected to people like Jonathan. You know, I went up to Rochester to visit him a few times. I went to his wedding. He didn't go to mine. I will forgive that.
In my
because that
defense,
his
I
it was his anniversary.
Yeah, it was the anniversary cruise, and you know I tried my damnedest to get to Pittsburgh on time, and there were no flights that wouldn't have got me there till after the ceremony.
Yeah, no, it
Trust me.
It was great because I was able to go back to school, stay in touch because you know I don't even know that we had MySpace.
No,
then. I don't think we did.
Kelly got me into MySpace in like 2005. Okay.
Yeah.
And I joined LiveJournal in 2004, which is how I met you, Rhea.
Yes.
And I know you'd know, like, I met Jonathan through the message boards, and I'm sure you were on there, but like you and I connected on LiveJournal, which that's an entire
that's an entire other thing. And my LiveJournal is still out there. It's Maria in WDWCP.
Mine exists. It is just locked down so that nobody but me can see anything that's on it. And nobody wants to see anything that's on it.
Oh, well, mine's just insufferable. I was such a goody two shoes. I was terrified of getting terminated. So I didn't go to parties. I think I went to exactly one party that did have alcohol. It was a friend who was 21, so they were in Chatham Square, and I went to that party. But it wasn't a banger. Like there was no chance of a raid. It was very classy. Anyway, stayed another semester at Kent State, and then transferred schools the following fall to Valparaiso University. And there I applied for the campus rep program. And I was probably the first campus rep to be at Valpo. And so did those three other girlfriends. They all became campus reps at their schools. And so the following New Year's Eve, we actually planned a reunion trip together. And that's where these shirts came from. Elise had these shirts made, like they had our names on it. I mean, just remember the early aughts was like the time you just had shirts with your name on it. Yes.
The early aughts was the time you just had shirts with your name on it.
Yes.
I'm writing this down as like
we pierced our tongues, our navels, got shirts with our names on it. I actually did have a nose ring that following spring. Pierced ourselves, put our names on shirts, and there were at least.
So I've got an RET spin on it. I knew people with sweatshirts with their AIM screen names on it.
Yeah.
So same thing.
All that stuff. And we went on this, the four of us went on a reunion trip. So because we were campus reps, we still got that sweet cast member discount. We got in for free. We stayed at Caribbean Beach and had a blast. Like we went to Epcot on New Year's Eve, and it was really great being a guest and not a cast member for that one. And yeah, like in the couple years that followed, like I remember Tara. I think I knew of you, like your screen name in 2002, but yeah, we didn't really connect until LiveJournal, and then we met in person.
I mean, I did have a GeoCities website.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. And then 2005, I was on my second internship, and I met up with you and Mia at Crossroads. That might have been Hooters. I think it was like the Hooters and the Crossroads. Yes, Crossroads. You know, and then you just fast forward through your life, and I was just thinking, like, I was telling my husband, I said, "Oh, this is a reunion for me and John and Tara. We went to Vegas 10 years ago, and like party."
Well, you and I went to Vegas in 2010.
Yes.
And then we went again in September 2011, I believe.
We went, September 2011, because that was right after my California trip.
I randomly had like a Southwest credit that I was, because back then they used to allow you to give them to other people. And I was like, I have this Southwest credit, and it covered like your entire plane ticket. And there was no way I was going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
It was like $70 or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like you were like, yeah. So you flew from San Diego, which is so crazy because like I've driven, to Vegas like
it's about a 4-hour drive.
From where I am now, it's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah. But, to be able to like stay connected, and the aforementioned roommates, like the last time we were all together again in person was for my roommate Michelle. She got married in 2012. We were all there for her wedding, and that was the last time we all four were together. Elise got married 3 or 4 years later, and one of the girls couldn't come, but the rest of us were there. And then in my wedding, 2 of those girls were in my wedding party. So, and one of them is coming with me and my husband to Colombia for my like 40th birthday gift to myself in a month. And it just blows my mind to like think that I turned 20.
Wait a minute, how are you older than me?
Yeah. I'm rolling up on in less than a month now on 40.
By like a couple months, so it's not. Oh my God, you're older than me.
I'm older than you by a month.
I just turned 39 on Sunday, so.
Yeah, so you're still younger, so fuck you.
Happy belated birthday,
Kelly. Remember, like,
thank you.
Being 19, like the last year I was a teenager, and turning 20 on my college program.
Oh man.
And now like looking back 20 years later and realizing that was literally half my lifetime ago.
It's absolutely insane to me because I remember so little from it, but I also documented a lot of it. So I went back, Kelly and I were talking about this on the last episode. Like I went back through all of my journal entries because I had a written journal, not a live journal. And I went back at one point, I scanned all of my like written journal entries into a computer because I was like, what happens if I lose these? I don't want to lose these. So I have all of them like in files, and I was reading through them to try to remember shit that happened. And it's just absolutely insane to me how much I don't remember when, and I say that when like I have such clear memories of random things from 10, 15, 20 years ago. But both of my college programs are such a blur. I mean, like I said, I was there for 2 months and maybe 10 days ish. And it felt like I was there forever. And nowadays, 2 months is like
nothing. Yeah.
It's a blink. Like 2 months ago, my stepkid had just barely finished his sophomore year in high school, and he already has started back for his junior year. And I'm just like, how do we get to these points? I mean, shit, it doesn't even feel like it was a year ago that I was last at Disney. And I know Kelly came and saw me when I went to Disney for I think I did did I do the challenge? No, it was just the half marathon. Thank God. Because it was cold as fuck that weekend. But that was almost a year ago. And I'm just like, how was that a year ago? But it also feels like time passes way too fast. And I know that's like an old person thing to say. And also, congrats on getting married. I knew you did, but I don't know. When did you get married?
So we're coming up on our 3rd anniversary this October.
Well, and Kelly is engaged now.
Congratulations.
When are you
getting
married?
I don't know. Congratulations.
I know. I don't know.
Jonathan is married and has 2 children. Jonathan, when was your wedding?
2014.
It was 14. I remember because I had 3 weddings to go to that fall.
Yeah, that was just a bad year for me. That was a bad year for me. So
yeah, we missed you at the wedding.
It's been great to be able to come back to, people that I haven't seen or talked to in a long time. Although Jonathan, I did see, gosh, what was it, 2 years ago when my husband and I went on a getaway weekend for my birthday that year in upstate New York. And it was just close enough to be like, hey, John, you want to meet for lunch?
I know. I need to move back.
I drove the half hour down to Canandaigua, and it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
We couldn't or hug. And I
Yes.
think
It's
our
like
picture, we were 6 feet apart
well
from each
before
other
vaccine.
for your picture.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so on that note, I'm going to end this and we can talk about more personal stuff after the fact for a bit. Do any of you guys have any last things you want to say? I'm just going to conclude my stuff with my summer 2002 program was weird and crazy, and it opened doors for me at Disney that I didn't expect it to. So it ended up being way more like influential in my life than I ever thought it would be. But also, as much as I have kept in touch with some of my friends from my 2001 program, I would say that I have done way more things with Jonathan and Kelly than I have with anybody from my 2001 program. I have visited Kelly in Florida a billion times. I visited Kelly in Michigan. When she was there. And we do run Disney together and sort of together. And like we meet up and do the things, and then we meet up after the race, you know, that type of thing. And Jonathan, like we've been on a ton of vacations together. Maria, I went out to San Diego and saw you out in San Diego.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
So I think that, and I know I didn't know Maria or Jonathan on the 2002 college program, but I feel like the friendships I fostered actually, weirdly enough, even if they came from after the fact, have been the most long lasting and important. So between that and the fact that the work that I did actually gave me an in to being a manager at Disney, it was a really weird but good experience for me. So, Kelly, any last thoughts on your 2002 college program?
Yeah, just I was gonna say the same thing. The friendships, the people that I've met and that I still talk to and I still see. I actually working at Epcot, we had this couple that worked, you know, with us, and they just took care of all of us, like all the college kids. They would always, you know, they were like, "Oh, come over, we'll have pizzas. Like, come over and hang out." They just, so we called them mom and dad. They were mom and dad. And I still keep in touch with them to this day. They actually live out in like near Vegas, I think. But they want to eventually move back down here, but they come down here. I go to Orlando, meet up with them. And it's just, I don't know, just the friendships and the people that I've met. And then, you know, coming back down here now, and I, you know, I get an annual pass and I go to Disney, and people are like, why do you go to Disney? I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, you don't understand. It's you. I can't even explain it. If you don't know, you don't know.
All right, Jonathan, what about you? Last thoughts?
Last thoughts. I mean, really, it's the best. I mean, short of the married and kids thing, best thing I've ever done. You know, it's you know, just trying to think of a way to properly define it or properly like compartmentalize it. And you know, the biggest thing is, I would say, validation that being myself is okay. And that was huge because, you know, growing up, you're, you know, one way, and then you like Disney, but hey, that's not cool because you're a guy and you also like, you know, Star Wars, and, you know, I'm a person who groove and nerdy stuff, and, you know, that's not considered cool at RIT. And then you go down to this place and all that's not only okay, but everyone's into the same stuff too. And that's extremely important, you know, to know that other people like what you like, I would say, you know. And this is, you know, still in the days of the internet, but not, you know, but it was still hard to kind of try to find that sort of community online. So to be able to, you know, get it and get into it was amazing. And then, you know, when we went, it was, you know, before everybody had a cell phone, before everyone had an iPod, you know, people weren't completely plugged in on the buses. So you were forced to interact with each other, right? You couldn't just keep your phone open and, you know, text, call, whatever, keep in touch with everyone back home. Nope. You were forced to interact with other humans, and you were forced to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your boxes. And that's really like was one of the best values of the program was, hey, look, I can meet all these new people. I can see new things. I can learn how to take tequila shots from a gay man from Iowa. That's a true thing. That's how I learned. Thanks, Tim. Just you got to do things that you couldn't do anywhere else, and that was huge. I mean, and then just the people. I mean, I wouldn't know any of y'all, if it wasn't for, basically a lot of really weird circumstances. And I'm just really glad that it happened.
Yeah, I have been waxing real nostalgic since the 20-year anniversary of my check-in day was last Saturday. And for me, going on the Disney College program is one of those things, one of those signposts that when I look back on my life, I say that was life-changing. That absolutely changed the trajectory of my life and career to some extent. Taking that chance and, running away from a aggressively lonely freshman year at college where I just I couldn't really find my niche and I didn't find my people, and to suddenly apply for this program I had never heard of, get accepted, and then within weeks have all these new friends who were literally all over the country, and to spend the whole summer just getting more and more excited and building up and getting there, and really being very far away from home for the first time, because I was only about 2 hours away from home at college and in the neighboring state. It wasn't that far away, but to be in Florida and so far away and living in an apartment, it was the first time I had all these roommates. It was the first time I lived in an apartment without adults, and to have to be the adult and figure out groceries and getting along with other people. And, those were the days of the real world. And I think a lot of people went into it being it's going to be like the real world. Well, yeah, guess what?
It is.
Yeah, all that drama that the cameras caught, that drama is real. That didn't have to be that manufactured. You live with other people. You have to figure it the fuck out. And it's not always easy when people are coming from just different backgrounds, different cultures, different ways of approaching the world, or of privilege, or of, I wouldn't trade that experience for absolutely anything in the world. And so it helped me be more confident in myself, and just better able to feel I can set out to do something that looks crazy and big, and I can do it. So I absolutely credit it for me having the courage to pack up my Honda Civic and move to California, to San Diego, sight unseen, not that long later. And I did do that second internship, and it was very different, but I still had relationships that formed out of that too. And yeah, having Disney on my resume, it did start conversations, and I carry all of that with me, everywhere I go. I still have little touchstones, this shirt. Yeah, I have all of my ears. This this robe behind me, I bought it on my college program in the Japan pavilion, and it's still the robe that I wear around the house, and just these little touchstones all over my life that are still here because of something I did 20 years ago. It really was magical, and it's fantastic. And I tell anybody who will listen how much I loved it, even on really crappy days. And there were crappy days. When I lost faith in humanity, the things that I had to clean up. Again, would not change it for the world.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you definitely had the worst job out of all of us.
Stories. In some ways the best, though, because I was very free to roam, and I had my little hiding spots, and I lost 20 pounds because I was walking all the time, and I'm really good at changing trash bags.
Yeah, I gained a lot of fucking weight on my first college because I wasn't walking anywhere, and I was drinking a lot, way more than I ever had before. I went back home, and I lost 15 pounds within a month and a half, 2 months, because I was oh, I'm not just eating bagels from the cafeteria.
Totino's pizza rolls.
Oh, all that shit. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me for this final episode of pretty much all my 20-year reunion series, I think, unless I decide to 20-year reunion when I was a manager, which I was so that would be an entirely different thing.
You should absolutely do that.
I think I probably will, even though it's like, oh God, that was 2006. So yeah, that's so many years from now, I can't think about it.
Or just do a 25-year with all of us again.
Yeah, exactly. So as we close out the episode, I just want to give a shout out to the Geek Saga Entertainment Heroes Tier Patreon, Tommy of the TKOK Podcast Network. Thanks so much for supporting us. And thank you again to Jonathan, Kelly, and Rhea for joining me for this episode. You can follow me across the web at A Geek Saga for updates on when you can catch future Geek Saga webcasts and podcasts, including my upcoming pre-Dragon Con webcast on August 20th and Hot D Takes, my brand new series on HBO's new show, House of the Dragon. Thank you guys again so much for joining. Have a lovely night.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Saga podcast. If you like what you heard, please check out other Geek Saga entertainment endeavors, including the Sagas and Sass webcast and podcast and Ice and Fire Con.